Welcome to YD Collab's Reflection Circle, where we have invited professionals from Community Chest and Harambee to discuss the challenges and triumphs of working in the non-profit sector. Join us as we deep dive into topics such as program delivery, income streams, sustainability, governance, compliance, self-care, boundaries, and burnout. So whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out in the non-profit world, this episode is for you. Tune in as we share our experiences, learn from each other, and work towards a brighter future for the communities we serve. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to YD Collab's very first Reflection Circle. This platform has really been created to create a space where we can have professionals who are working in the space from various different organizations to share their learnings so that others can also benefit from those learnings, but also to maybe possibly find solutions and co-create new ways of working, which are needed really currently in the state that we're currently finding ourselves in South Africa. And not just South Africa, but globally, there's definitely a feeling of constraints of resources, a need for increasing efficiencies and delivering better with less. And so I think if we have a moment where we can share on program delivery and resource mobilization to help us better deliver to the youth, because that's who really needs our support. So today I have a lovely panel of amazing women. It wasn't intentional. It just so happened that, great women were willing to have the conversation. But I have four amazing women from two really great organizations that are doing amazing work in South Africa. But these two organizations, one has been around for almost 95 years. I mean, that's almost unheard of in 2023, an organization that has really stood the test of time, and that is ComChest. And from there, we have me and Lynette, but also we have Harambee, who are, I wouldn't say new to the space, because 2011, that's also a really good solid track record, but really an innovative organization that we've watched grow strength to strength to strength. So let me stop talking and let the professionals come in to do what they have said they would do. So I'm going to start with Takalani and Nokubonga. If you could please introduce yourselves and the programs that you're going to be sharing from. Nokubonga, you can start first, and then Takalani, you'll go next, and then we'll have Umi and Lynette go next. Great.
Awesome, thank you. I hope you can hear me well. It's great to be here and just to have the space and the opportunity to share. I am Nokubonga, fondly known as Noku. Everybody at Harambee calls me Noku. And I'm program lead for Harambee in an initiative that we're implementing specifically in eThekwini called the Global Opportunity Youth Network. And really, and that it keeps me alive and up at night every single day. And we'll chat a little bit about what that is about, but really it's about how do we collaborate in an area-specific ecosystem to try and solve for youth unemployment, which really ensures that we work with a lot of partners across different sectors to mobilize resources, but also just to mobilize energy for partnerships. One fun thing about me, I am currently learning how to play bass guitar because it takes certain patience that's required as well in my workspace. Currently not doing so great at that, but it's going.
Look, we're not masters at the first go of anything, really. Thank you so much for that intro, Nokubonga. Takalani, if you'd like to go next.
Good morning, and thank you again, Zinhle, for bringing me into this space. Really lovely to meet you all. My name is Takalani Salimane. I don't know if this is the part where we talk about like how we got into like the journey. So just anything. Quiet. Okay. So So you know, I'm one of those kids that grew up in like a very remote village in Venda. I'm sure if you like try to locate it, you're gonna have very difficulty finding it. But growing up, I always have this fond memory of my father, who was a teacher at the time. And he really was this one person who the community would come to, you know, almost on a daily basis, would have like, Coco, you know, we need to know how to like go and get an ID book. We need to know how to, just anything, I guess, around community. And this was not his job. This is like something that he was doing out of, I guess, just feeling like, you know, needing to be humbly helpful within the community. So I think growing up like that, I just, you know, it kind of like planted a seed in my brain. And I always knew that I wanted to do community work. In fact, in our early ages, we started this little organization called Wadzura, which means in Venda, if you sit, things will sit, nothing is going to move, you know. Unfortunately, we all went different ways, but I think I then found myself doing some work with the construction sector, then again doing some work with also services sector that actually led me back to this journey where I am right now at Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator. So I'm with Noku as well. I'm with Adela. I am in the project support office, and really my work is stakeholder management, partnership management, advocating for these young people to get opportunities, and trying really hard to entrench, you know, the work that we do, just so that, you know, we're hoping the South Africans can see SA Youth as a go-to place for inclusive hiring, and young people can see us as well as a go-to place for, you know, what do I do to just, you know, find the next pathway instead of like feeling quite disillusioned. So fun fact about me, I did belly dancing actually for a couple of years. I really loved it. I love performing on stage. I think my husband also enjoyed it. But yeah, that's before the kids, and that all had to take a pause once we started having children. And the program I'm going to be speaking to today is really around a partnership between the NYDA Jobs Fund. You know, they opened a round of funding in 2021, called in community-based organizations to, you know, come in and, you know, present some projects that they might have within community that they might want to, you know, get young people interested in, active in. It's really community-based work. And it was really designed to drive active citizenship for these young people, get young people engaged, and get young people, you know, being proud about the work that they're doing in the community, while earning a very small stipend of about 1,400 at a minimum. But I guess the whole point is that even that 1,400 still puts on food on the table. So that's what I'll be talking to today.
Great. Thank you for that. Bumi, I think you're next in your introduction. Oh, you're on mute.
I'd love to have my camera on, but I still have load shedding, so my internet is not the greatest at the moment. So hi.
Story of our lives.
So hi, I'm just gonna switch it off. Is that okay with you guys?
We're fine with that.
Thank you. Can you still hear me though?
We can hear you.
Yes. All right. So good morning, everyone. I am Nompumelelo Mpofu. I'm a fundraising manager at the Community Chest. I have been with the Community Chest of the Western Cape for sorry about that. I've been with the Community Chest of the Western Cape for the past 4 years. I have a BA in community development, and I'm currently busy with my honors degree in development studies. Fun fact about me, I used to be a hockey coach in my early varsity days, and I am a big sports fanatic.
Really?
So my first degree so my first degree was actually sports development and management, and then That's a fun fact about me. What you need to know is that what I do at the community chest, I'm actually a fundraising manager, but I also run the operations for the Joburg office. So yeah, that's me. Short
Thank you
and
for
sweet.
that. I love that. Lynette, the floor's yours.
I'm going to also keep my camera off because it seems that every time the camera goes on, bandwidth is not very happy with me.
No, it's okay.
So hi everybody, but you all know my face, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm Lynette Jeftha. I'm actually a school teacher by profession. I taught in the primary school sector for 19 years. I was a sports coach. I worked on both national and provincial levels. I was a coach coordinator, which meant I had to coordinate 22 codes of sport in the
Wow.
primary school, arrange tournaments and things like that. And when I left in 1998, I then did 2 years of voluntary work and set up an office for the Western Province Primary School Sports Board. And in the year 2000, I started in the NGO sector as a PRO and fundraiser at a special needs school. And I saw children, I saw community through different eyes. And I've not looked back since then. I've been at the community chest for the past 13 years, started in the individual portfolio, and for the past few years, I'm the business investment manager at Community Chest, and I also coordinate the programs and projects in the Cape Town office. My main role is to ensure that we have operational budget, and I'm in charge of the trust and estates portfolio at Community Chess. And something fun about me, I also did belly dancing for a few
Hey.
years. So I've a number of coin belts, and but I also played softball and netball at first division level. So yeah, I was very involved in sport until, of course, 8 operations later, and here I am just walking.
Well, we thank God
That's
that you can
me.
still walk. Thank you so much, Lynette. I feel like you and
Yes,
Takalani need to do
definitely.
a workshop of some sort around the belly dancing thing. I know I would sign up. I have a feeling
Yeah,
I have people in my
some
network.
hip drops.
Yes, channel that inner
Hips don't
feminine
lie.
energy. Right.
Hips don't lie.
No, they don't. So let's get back on track. I know we could totally deviate with this one. So, ladies, the point of the reflection circle, when I shared and reached out to you, I really wanted us to look at the first quarter of the year. We're in quarter 2 now, and we've done some work. And what are some of the key learnings that you have taken from just kind of getting the year started? I mean, every year starts with a different note, and even if you are rolling either the same projects, there's always new nuances and new learnings that evolve or surface. So I don't know who would like to kind of take a first look at that. Nokubonga, I see you nodding. I'm gonna pick on you because the camera's on. She's like, why? But if you could go first and share some of your reflections of the first quarter thus far.
I think the first quarter of the year has kind of like whisked us, especially in the global opportunities and eThekwini, in such a nice way. And we were doing part of what I think I really quite enjoyed was doing a piece of a research with young people, and sort of like tag that as narrative change, because of course we've been implementing the project since the beginning of 2021. But I think it's always, because the program really is about how do we work together in an ecosystem to solve for the challenge. And I think we almost mostly just come into the program, and especially with from a Harambee head of an organization that has been sort of like trying to solve and like trying to go at this for more than a decade. We almost like in some cases go in with a lot of assumptions. I think the first quarter of the year, starting it off with a lot of just deep dive into research about like narrative change. So going into young people and partners to try and really understand what is the current narrative about youth, their potential, their challenges, their barriers, but also like what could be possible solutions. It really gave me a lot of freshness on how I look at the challenge, especially because it was so youth-centric and so youth-focused. So going around eThekwini, engaging firsthand with young people, hearing a lot directly from them, how first they define what the current narrative is from themselves, so like how they see themselves, but also like what actually has contributed to that. So hearing a lot about their stories of how a young woman in Adam's Mission who absolutely has been struggling in terms of finding work opportunities was able to understand that that came from a lot of what she heard about her being ugly, and a lot of opportunities to go at interviews actually required her to actually show up at an interview, and she can't show up because she grew up being told that she doesn't look good. And I think it gave me a lot of just context of who we're dealing with and how these young people actually are surrounded consistently by these narratives, by these sort of like things, not just like at the point where they're between the ages of 18 up to 35, when we normally come in and try and understand how we can engage them in opportunities, but like a lot of who they come in as a result of the many things that exist in the system, of course, but also just how important it is for us who are trying to mobilize the ecosystem to solve the problem, to actually understand like what it is that we're dealing with, what is the narrative as is, because we can't change it if we don't know what like where are we currently and how did we get here. And I think for me that was such a powerful way to start the year off in.
Wow. I mean, narrative change, I mean, narratives for me are always something that really resonates with me, because I find since society and media in general, you have either one or two like archetypes of stories that are told, but the truth is there are so many nuances. And when we are trying to deal with youth and trying to address their challenges, there are so many moving parts. So I'm interested to know, now that you've identified the various different narratives that maybe you may have been missing, where it's not just about maybe access to education, but really it's about self-belief and limiting self-beliefs that youth find themselves constantly having reiterated to themselves. How do we actually address that? How do we shift those narratives? And I don't know if you have an answer to that or an approach that you're crafting. For me, when I think of those things, I'm kind of hopeful, because there are so many platforms also that youth engage on. And I think there's an opportunity for us to arrive in those platforms and share positive storylines and narratives that speak to the things that they are challenged by, self-vision or self-awareness or how you perceive yourself. But yeah. I'll stop there.
That's where we at. We also have the very same question. How do we then actually go at driving the change?
Lynette, floor's yours.
Okay, you don't mind if my camera's
No, it's
off?
okay. It's okay.
Okay. So I'm listening to the first quote and so on. And at Community Chess, we've actually we've been through quite a challenging time. And despite the challenges of staff reduction, and we were staff of 42, and we now staff of 20 who have to produce exactly the same work, the same, in fact, an increase. Look, Mpumi is laughing, an increase budget, operational budget. And these two ladies here, myself and that beautiful woman there, it's actually become our responsibility. But you know something? Because of our passion and the knowledge that we've gained over the years, I guess, it has really made our lives a bit easier. So what we've discovered at Community Chess, donors are so attracted to Community Chess because of the work that we do, and they can see the impact that we make in communities. And if you look at our various income streams, I just take now from the first quarter, I must say, we've been absolutely blessed with income. There hasn't been a shortage of income, but we have also found that we have a program called Our Give As You Earn, and that's workplace giving. And that's the people who earn like the lowest income. But that has been one of the most sustainable incomes that we have at the moment. We've even done a little with one of my colleagues. We've done a little study over the past 10 years, and that income generated about 12 million rand over a 10-year period, which is as people giving 1 rand, 5 rands, 10 rands, but it's the masses. So that has been absolutely amazing. But I do have to admit that the most income was raised in our trusts and estates. And I guess because we are open, we've had to change, and Mpumi, I'm sure will touch on that as well. We've had to change and rethink what we do. As a 95-year-old organization, we couldn't remain in a capsule because of the ever-changing economic climate that we find ourselves in. And donors are not writing out checks any longer. They want to see value for their money, and they want to see if it's really worth giving you this money. Are you going to actually carry out what you say you do, or you are fly by night? And that is the thing that has stood us in good stead, because we stick to what we say we are going to do. We're not a fly by night organization. We try and ensure that we meet our donor needs, but we don't change who we are in the process. We still remain true to our vision and our 4 focus areas of education, income generation, health, and community development. And so, yeah, I must say, between myself and my beautiful colleague, we've really been working very hard to ensure that we maintain and that we grow. And we've grown exponentially, especially from the corporate side. We've grown exponentially in the type of things that we do. And I'm sure Mpumi will touch on, because it's, on the corporate side, she has done amazing work. She's like taken Community Chess on an entirely new trajectory, which is, if you look at the floods that we had in the Eastern Cape, the shacks that burnt out here in Cape Town, and how she was able to mobilize the donor. But she can speak about that. I don't want to take away her shine, So I'm not sure if there's if Takalani, if I'm answering what you are actually asking, because I'm sure, look, the time there's such a lot that I can say, but I think we need to have more of these types of conversations so that we can actually get to the nitty-gritty of, of what it is that we do. So I don't know if there's a question maybe before I go, or if Mpumi wants to say something, to say, no, Lynette, you're talking nonsense now.
No, not at all, but I think we definitely need a follow-up session, because touching on the income streams only is a whole different conversation in terms of the different income streams and what they do for us as an organization, right? Whether it's programmatic or operationally. So those are that's definitely a follow-up conversation, because in terms of corporate, we normally prioritize them for our programmatic work. And then we use our trust to kind of sustain and grow the organization, and kind of also preserve some of that money right into our reserves. So it's not just about funding the programmatic work, but it's also about sustaining the organization, hence why we survived COVID. Lynette talking about Give As You Earn, that kept our doors open during COVID. It might be a silly R1, R5, R10, whatever. That kept our doors open. Same with our individuals. Our individuals literally donate like 50 cents. It seems like nothing, but the reality is that during COVID, those same 50 cents kept our doors open. Yes, we lost 22 people in the process. It's painful, but the reality is that we're still doing the work that we need to do based on that. So I can continue going, but I want to give Takalani a chance and then I'll come in afterwards.
Okay, Takalani, there you go.
Yeah, I'll stay on 5 more minutes.
Great.
Thanks,
See, the
Lynette.
conversation is going well.
Yeah. Thanks, Lynette.
I wanted to ask
Sorry.
one thing because Lynette, you've given us the 5 minutes. I think ComChest has a great benefit of having a reputation. When you have history and past performance and a track record, it is not easy, somewhat easier. Okay, I don't want to take away the challenge of what you face, but for organizations that are smaller, because I know that there's organizations that do great work that really have, finger on the pulse. They understand the nuances and the work that they do is really important. But they don't have that track record. How would you advise an organization that's wanting to fundraise and be able to do what, and have the different models and income streams that you're talking about embedded within their organization?
Okay, so I think that is where our programmatic programs come in, because what we've done with the small organizations, because that always comes through in our capacity building training, because I facilitate fundraising training as well at Community Chest. And we found actually in the capacity building training that is where because they're not constituted properly, their governance is not in place, they have not passed the due diligence. And the one thing that I can say, when donors see that an organization, doesn't matter how small they are, that they've passed the Community Chest due diligence, they're actually more open to receive funding with a stamp of approval from the Community Chest and their due diligence, because we give them a certificate, they become compliant. So there's various levels of compliancy, and like there's gold compliancy, there's the normal compliancy, and then of course in process where they are able to access maybe donations in kind, where they're in a process. But once organizations, we actually stress that you need to become compliant first before you can actually approach your donors. And I think that is the problem with a lot of organizations, that they don't have the governance documents in place. And I mean, so we invite the organizations to come through our training programs so that they can become due diligence. We call it DD.
Takalani, do you want to share some of your reflections?
All right. So I think that, and I might be one of those that are going rogue. Please stop me at any point. But I looked at the question, right? And because the program that I'm speaking about has been ongoing since 2022 in March, it's really hard to just reflect for me on just the one quarter, especially if I want to look at like successes and challenges. So I hope you don't mind, but I actually looked at the time in its entirety. And I mean, Adela will know, like, phew, we went into this and we thinking, we are Harambee, as Noku is saying, we've been doing this. We know how to do this, step 1 to step 10, And I promise you, like, this project is one project that I literally got my butt handed to me. I want to be very honest about that. Yeah. It's the complexities are just, they're never ending, and it is complexities that start from even like the term sheet, So when the grants were actually offered, or the round of funding was actually advertised, and the terms would say that, young people need to be facilitated through SA Youth. What does that mean? It's not explicit. So when we're dealing with community-based organizations that have, some of them have never really dealt with SA Youth or know who Harambee is. Maybe they might, and they've got their own obviously experiences on and opinions about Harambee, right? It feels like it's something that is forced upon them, which is, that was I feel like the first thing is that there needed to be a little bit of clarity and understanding created there at the very beginning. When we say facilitating through SA Youth, we mean that young people would need to, the advert would need to be put up in SA Youth, young people need to apply in SA Youth, and there are other processes that need to be done, because ultimately we need to report on SA Youth so that we can give the PYEI, the feedback in terms of who's been hired, who's been, So that was a contentious issue and a lot of haggling. Communities themselves were annoyed because they're like, who is this SA Youth just coming in? We've got our own databases. We've got our own lists of people that we've been working with. These are young people that need to be in the forefront of these opportunities, And it's valid in itself, because there should really have been a lot of advocacy work done prior to us just bombarding there, and in partnership with NYDA, in partnership with the National Treasury, Jobs Fund, to say, this is why we are using SA Youth. And there's a very clear reason why we're using SA Youth, is because some will be successful when they apply, some won't be successful. And regardless whether you're successful or not, the project is going to end. It's only 6 months. So how do young people then still pathway into other opportunities? Being on SA Youth means that a young person has visibility beyond the program that they're currently applying for right now. So yeah, and then there's what we call boundaries of inclusion, where we actually went into, Noku was in the forefront with us deep in KZN, where young people, just as much as we say we are zero rated, everything is fantastic, there were young people who just have no connectivity. There's no connectivity in their area. And it was the time of floods. Young people don't even have the resources. They don't have the smartphones. Even though it's zero rated, you still have to have access to a smartphone in order to join Mobi. So, Noku really had to help us with her team to mobilize a group of people from Harambee, our teams, to go into those areas and do manual registrations and facilitate, all the work in those areers. I don't know if that's helpful at all, what I'm sharing currently.
Yes.
Is it even aligned with like what,
It is. I hear that you've had to pivot in your program delivery, right? You had an idea, like a hypothesis, but what you found on the ground became apparent that the thinking, though, in academic terms, was accurate, but in actual application is something else. And when did you make the call to say, right, guys, we need to change our approach? And what were some of the challenges that you faced when you were trying to do that pivot? Because I've found with program delivery, especially when somebody has spent time to craft the idea, the thought on this is how we're going to do it, and having to pivot, there tends to be internal resistance as well. Is that what you found? Or did you find everybody was on board when you guys all came to the realization that, it's not quite going the way it needs to be going?
Look, and I will speak in terms of the boundaries of inclusion, in terms of the work that we had to go now to be on site, that takes resources, first of all. And once, you approach finance in terms of something that was not even on the budget, of course, you are going to get major pushback. So I think that I feel very, lucky to be in a team where we've got the likes of Unoku, who is, steadfast, and she speaks for the young people. She is, her voice is around young people. And it's like, then why are we doing this? What are we doing if we're not putting young people at the center of what we're doing? And And between her and our exec, who is Penny, who's also very, very invested. I don't know if you know Penny.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, very invested in terms of making sure that we are supporting community-based organizations, and we don't apply the same lens that we use when we are doing private sector opportunities, government opportunities. This is completely different, and it's nuanced and complex. So, I mean, we were lucky to have her push on. She fought the good fight in terms of finance, because finance was like, this is going to, it was a heck of a budget. Noku, please come in. Please come in, because you were really there, please.
Yeah, no, and it was a backwards and forth conversation. But I think it really always is helpful to bring in the, like, why are we doing this in the first place? And that is really what kept us moving and going throughout the backwards and forth of, like, do you understand what it's gonna take to drive around KZN going to Guanangoma, where I'm actually from? So part of it, and I think it really also really helps to have people who have proximity to the problem and who understand what that might look like. And I think it really also just for me was really important to say, if I, someone who grew up in Guanangoma, cannot help the organization understand just like how this, like, I can understand you telling me that SA Youth is rated, it's all of these things good. I'm like,
stop, but
don't even have a thought. Like, what are you talking about? And I think if those voices aren't brought into those big conversations about, like, budget and the resources and then how we're going to do all of those things, because then there's what then guides the decision making to what needs to change, and now we need to change it. But it isn't easy, and I think just really understanding that it isn't easy, because we had to then pull in different resources from the call center to say, okay, we're going to need people who are going to be on standby. We drove around, and I can't tell you how many times the car broke down, how many times I had to call the team because they were sleeping in the area. It just was so tedious, but it was so worth it, because in the end, we're able to reach people that we actually wouldn't have been in the norm, or if we had insisted on doing things the way that we had planned initially in the project. So it was a very tedious but necessary pain that we had to go into.
So I you know, the finance thing is really where where a lot of the time the devil lies in the implementation, and it's not by any fault of theirs. I understand that they need to keep a tight ship, right? In order for things to be done as they need to be done, you know, it's not a personal thing. You know, I understand the function and the purpose of it in an organization. But Umi, I'm going to ask you to come in here, and I, you know, I know doing fundraising and also kind of, you know, being in that space. Is there no way of doing some kind of creative budgeting or accounting when plans are being made for a program or being designed that leaves space for human error without leaving an organization open for disrepute? Because, you know, when we create a space where that space, you know, we live in South Africa, we've seen the crime and the not even just crime, the corruption, you know, and the erosion of trust that can happen when trust is given. But is there a way that we can, when we design programs, understanding that we are human and we only have a certain narrative or limited understanding of how things work, but as we try to solve for problems, leave room to say, I may not fully understand this problem to solve for it as it needs to. And as I get on the ground, I'm going to need to adapt, you know, because I can imagine Takalani and Nokubonga, as you are seeing this now and you're having to adapt, that time and the effort, the stress that comes in and the tension in an organization to try and now navigate and champion for a pivot, and finance is saying no, and you're saying, but this is what we're trying to do, you know. But if there was accommodation that says we are human and human elements come into a program and they need to be accounted for. Is it possible? Especially, you know, speaking with corporate partners, government, I know there's governance challenges that might prohibit that, and understandably, I live in South Africa where every day there's a bomb going off because somebody has siphoned. But yeah, I don't know if you can speak to that. I'd love to hear.
So I think with us, normally when we do our budgeting for our programmatic work, obviously the programs team will give us what they need, right, for their program in terms of this is how much ideally we would need. But then we go into a finance meeting with the finance team and we say, okay, we need to also look at the risk, right? We also need to factor in contingency, right? And then we also need to factor in our service fee as an organization. Because in as much as we want the money from the corporates, we also need to sustain ourselves in the process. And so we need to charge a service fee for that specific program. And that's how we would normally structure it, in the sense that, okay, fine, programs has given us what they need, right? In terms of what I need to go out there and find for them in order for these projects to be implemented. And then I then sit with Lynette and with finance, and then now we discuss in terms of what does risk look like, especially for our humanitarian. Risk is always high, right? Because it's immediate response. You need to be quick on your feet. You need to be on the ground immediately. It's not like the other programmatic work, like another project that we're busy with in the Free State. It's for the next 12 months. It started in January. That's different. So the approaches are not normally the same, but you also need to assess your level of risk for each project, and then that's how you would determine your contingency.
Man, you're making me think I want to have a little workshop with you where you can kind of capacitate organizations as they're trying to think around budgeting when they are implementing, because really that's a big hindrance that people don't account for shifting ground under them. And we live in a country that is constantly shifting. I mean, it's earthquake central up in here. But thank you for that insight. I say it's
and
no.
the most common one is administration. The most common one is administration. So there. So you can play around with it. The wording is also different in terms of each organization, obviously. But I know that we all use similar terms across the sector. So I think it's just about how you want to structure programmatic work. But I'm also showing you that everyone is involved in the process, from the programmatic team to the fundraising team to the finance team. And then obviously there's leadership involved as well in terms of the final product. But it's important that when you do budgeting, that everyone who's involved also understands the budget, because I think that's the biggest problem. Easy for us to throw it to finance, but remember that if I don't understand budgeting, then I don't know what I'm negotiating to donors, right? Also, and if I don't understand our programs, then I definitely don't know what I'm selling either to our donors. And because I work by myself in Joburg, I do both. So I will implement the programs and go and find the money for the programs. So you need to understand the whole system. It's literally supply chain in NGOs. Exactly. It's literally supply chain in NGOs. That's literally what it is. You need to understand the whole system.
And I mean, what you've just mentioned there about being the thinker behind it and the implementing as well. I think throughout my career, I've always struggled with this. And, you know, my therapist will say, it's boundaries. So I think that's the next place that I want us to talk to, ladies, because, you know, burnout is a reality in the space when you are constantly pouring out, you know, from your cup. You can find yourself at empty. So in our reflection, can we reflect a bit on some of the self-preservation and boundary setting work that you have possibly had to do? And if not, if you are also in a space where you kind of go, I'm struggling and failing to do boundaries, let's talk about that, because I think there's an opportunity possibly there to kind of share some of our learnings on how to establish those boundaries. Takalani, I'm gonna go with you because you're kind of like, what? Do you want to share? You seem to have
Probably
something.
gonna start with wine.
Is Adela on the line? Is Adela on the line? Because I see Adela,
Start
when
with
Adela
wine and it's gonna
approached
end with
me,
the wine.
wine helps wine. But is Adela on the line? Because Adela, yeah, there she is. Adela, what did I say to you when you asked me, can I do this session? I think she must speak for me. Oh,
Adela,
I don't think she's on the line.
no, she is there. She's
Okay.
muted, but
So I said to Adela, give me the context of the work, because I definitely have boundaries now. Oh, I'm in. Adela, yeah, please, Adela, you can confirm that I said this to you. I said, okay. When she gave me the context of what we're going to be doing here, I said, that sounds like self-care. I'll do it. That sounds like self-care. Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely have boundaries. Noku, our work can be, Noku, you'll speak for yourself, but I'm sorry. I've been at Harambee for 9 years. I burnt out at some point. But there was a point last year where I said, no more. No more. Yeah. So it's hard. It is really hard because we love the work. We're so passionate about the work, and you wanna help as many as you can. But at the end of the day, you've still got. I'm a mom of small children, so it becomes impossible. We've got other demands in our lives, and if we don't take care of ourselves, it's just, you start to be resentful.
And that, I think when that happens, it's really a danger to the quality of work you are able to deliver. When you can no longer serve because there is nothing left, it is a dangerous place to operate from. I don't know, Nokubonga or Mpumi. I know Mpumi and I had a conversation. I'm not going to share too much because I have not said, hey, I'm going to bring this up. But the conversation on boundaries for myself has been really, and boundaries not just in this space, in any parts of life, when we find ourselves not being able to say no because we feel guilty or feel pressured to have to arrive as a certain way. And I think especially for women, and I do want to say that, especially for women, because we are in general very socialized to give and nurture. And it seems like constantly a never-ending fountain of giving. But Nokubonga, go.
It resonates so much. And I think the conversation as well has just come in such a very special and such needed time in my life. I think because I've recently had to really confront a lot of what for years, and I've been at Harambee for 10 years. I celebrate 10 years tomorrow, actually, officially at Harambee. And
Mimosas,
as you
ladies.
can imagine,
Congratulations.
And I think also the one thing that I've learned, and I'm really on the journey to embracing, is that 10 years, I'm not the same person. Of course, and Harambee was my first job. I think that for me has always been such a precious thing. And last year, towards the end of the year, when I was like literally out of all things, even like out of reserves for anything and everything, love, patience, kindness, all of it just ran out because I just had been at it. And as you can imagine, and it's not just in your workspace where you have to do this, and you have to I've just been going through multiple changes. One, like understanding, I think that just understanding that I'm a completely different person a decade later than I was. I cannot show up in the same way because I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm a different person. Everything about me has changed. And like I was reflecting the other day and saying that over like in the span of a decade, I've become an aunt. I've lived across different provinces. My mom has had dementia, and basically I've lost my dad. I've had to build a house. And all of that giving and the multiple changes that literally completely change who you are. Of course, they're gonna change how you show up. And my therapist and I have become like besties, because he will literally sit and ask me, you gotta draw boundaries. I was like, is there a shop I can buy them by any
Please,
chance? Because
somebody sell boundaries.
and I've literally had to, I was like, whatever is needed, I can see that I need them in my life. But I think it's actually been seeing that it's a way of self-care, it's a way of actually loving myself, but it's also a way of ensuring that, because you still have to show up in your family, you still have to show up. I love going to church. I have to show up there, because that's also a way in which I have to pour into my cup. In order for me, I think like being able to also like show to your employer and like having conversations, say like, this is what it takes for me to fill my cup. I've got to do all of these other things and not feel guilty when you do those things, because those are the things that you need in order for you to then be able to. But it's hard. It's probably the hardest work I've ever had in my life, taking care of myself, because I feel like I'm such a very difficult client. I've been a difficult client to myself, and it hasn't been easy.
You know, I think the great thing about development and growth, and not just for ourselves individually, just even as young Black women in this space, right? For us to be able to talk openly about, I go and see a therapist, because sometimes you just need that external voice that reiterates, confirms for you that it is okay for you to have a boundary. Like, you kind of know you're burning, you're sweating, and you're like, something's wrong. And just having someone say to you, draw the line. You know, it's okay. You are entitled to draw the line, and actually show you that by drawing the line, you will enable yourself to better perform. Because also, we're so driven to arrive as our best selves, right? We want to always just be here, but you can't do it if you're not, if the engine of a car is not functioning, it's not going to happen that you are going to beat and get that first place position. So for me, I don't know, do you have anything that you'd like to add around boundaries and maybe even having difficult conversations? That was another thing that I've learned about boundaries, right? You know, to speak up when you can hear someone is encroaching on your space and is actually borderline manipulating what they have a right to access.
Yeah. I think for me, the first question I always ask myself is, how do I even show up if my cup is empty? Like, I'm just like, how do you show up when your cup is empty? Because what do you have to give, you know, if your cup is empty? And the biggest thing, how I do self-care for myself is normally in silence. So reading and praying is my biggest thing. I do it like that. That's my therapy. That's my method. And the one thing I've established this year is protecting my space as well. You know, immediately something doesn't serve my work or my personal life purpose, I protect my space. And that's how I put up a boundary. And the biggest thing with us women especially is not differentiating between our work and personal life balance. And the fact that it's okay to have a knock-off time. And the fact that it's okay to not try and be a step ahead, because we are planners, right? We're not just gonna, you know, oh, today's Friday, close my laptop, open it again on Monday. No. But
I
in
wish.
the process, there's certain exactly. But in the process, there's certain things that you can do for yourself that will protect you from getting to that place of creating a boundary, because now you're forced to create that boundary because of your situation, right? But because I almost feel like we wait until we're at a point of burnout to realize that we actually burnt out. We don't prevent the burnout from actually happening. And so honestly, it's been a huge struggle for me. I'm not gonna lie. I feel so drained because I'm just like, so I'm literally looking for money, and then when I find the money, I must also still do the work in terms of implementing the project, and then I must still maintain that donor relationship and still report back to the donor and still do this and still do that. When do I get time to look at the next opportunity? Because that's another 3 to 6 months. We only have 12 months in a year, you know? And that's a conversation I've been having with my employer as well, to say that the office is growing, the projects are growing, we need resources. So my biggest thing has been constraints from a resource perspective, but I've just dealt with it in the best way. Being in my quiet space, reading and praying is honestly the best therapy for me. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me sane. But more than anything, that's what keeps me grounded. Because it's easier for me to complain, but I know that when I came into the sector, I came into the sector because I wanted to serve people, right? Being paid for it to me is a bonus. Because not everyone can say that. When I listen to people saying they volunteer, I'm like, how do you survive? How do you sustain your own livelihood, right? When you're prioritizing other people. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I could keep going.
Well, that's the end of our first reflection circle. We hope this conversation has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to continue exploring the challenges and triumphs of working in the non-profit sector. We encourage you to share your thoughts and experiences with us on our social media platforms, such as Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Let's continue the conversation and work towards creating sustainable change in our communities. If you'd like to be part of our next reflection circle, please email us or DM us. Our contact details can be found in the description below. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you at the next reflection circle.